Hey there, Casey here at Home with Casey. Welcome to my interview. I'm with Elyssia Maya. Once again, she is our in-house food relationship coach, examining our relationships with food. Welcome, Elyssia. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you, Casey, for having me again.
So,
excited about some holiday treats. Oops.
Yeah. So we had been chatting about what's coming up. Once it becomes Halloween, it's Christmas, right? And baking and things like that.
That is true.
And we still have goals in mind. But one of the things when we talk about food is, particularly in baking, is gluten, right? Mm-hmm. So right. Gluten, it is a hot topic. It is a fad. Well, I consider it sort of a nutritional fad, right? Mm-hmm. What exactly is gluten and why are people kind of going towards gluten-free, giving up whole food group like that?
Yeah. So gluten itself is a protein that's in wheat, barley, and rye. So gluten, I think, has so much attention because we eat so many wheat products, products made with flour in our culture, right? Pizza, bread, pasta, and these are easy things, to make, for dinner, right? So gluten can cause inflammation in the body. So I think also on the heels of our culture learning more about inflammation, we've kind of pinpointed in gluten as the scapegoat for inflammation. Which it may or may not be, for people, depending on their own body. And so it's gotten a lot of attention, and people have, just like with any fad or trend, it's like, let's cut it out completely. So gluten-free industry has been growing steadily, in terms of the products, gluten-free products since 2016. And I don't think it's stopping,
Yeah, I think it's going to be around. Now, I've experienced my first experience with eating gluten-free came with my mother. Now, she's truly she has celiac, which is probably one of the only diseases that's confirmed to be gluten intolerant. Like, you're unable to digest gluten in wheat. And what it does is cause nutritional problems. You can't digest food. You can't get the appropriate nutrients. You get osteoporosis, anemia, and things like that. Mm-hmm. So how does one really know, aside from I stopped eating gluten, I feel better, right? How does one really know if they're really intolerant?
Yeah, so you can do blood tests, but there's, 12 parts to the gluten protein, and it only actually tests for one of them, these blood tests. So they'll draw your blood and then they'll, try and react it with the gluten protein, but it's only part of the gluten protein. So it's not conclusive. They're often not conclusive because you're only testing the reaction to one part of the gluten protein. So the gold standard that, doctors will tell you is to cut gluten out of your diet for 30 days and then slowly reintroduce it and see if you have the same, digestive upset, pain, inflammation, your specific reactions that you were having before. Like we talked about, of course, you're going to feel better without it because, if you're having trouble digesting wheat to begin with, you're going to feel better, your body not trying to do that, right? You're not going to have that gas, bloating, whatever symptoms you usually have.
Right. I mean, it takes a lot of energy to digest food. And so, especially a protein and complex thing like wheat, right? So you might experience a spike in your energy and then just associate that with, hey, I'm gluten intolerant, I'm going to give it up.
Yeah. And, if you can digest it, you have a strong, healthy digestive, function. You have strong, healthy digestive function. If you can't, you likely have some gut work to do. Like you might have leaky gut, for example.
So it might be an indication of some other health issue related to that. So something to investigate. Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah. So now, if we are, like we said, the gluten-free industry is huge. Mm-hmm. What are our alternatives flour-wise? We're coming up into the baking season. What are we going to use instead of, flour? And just really briefly, we talked about there was a surge during this time that we spent at home in people baking their own bread, right? The flour at the grocery store was all sold out. So
wow.
everybody's baking sourdough bread. So what kind of flours other than, the regular wheat flour or processed flour can we use?
Yeah. So popular flours for baking that they're not actually grain at all are almond and coconut flour. So 2 nut flours, which great because, their nuts have healthy omega-3 oils and are anti-inflammatory. They've got their nutrient profile that's different from grains. So, but particularly almond and coconut tend to work really well for baking. And then you have, your buckwheat, spelt, what else is there? Corn, rice, not so great for baking.
No. Well, and one thing I read about almond flour now, because the profile is very different. So with regular processed flour, they take out the main things that help regulate blood sugar, which is, we talked about the germ and the bran, right?
Right.
So then what causes when we eat the white flour, our blood sugar to spike. So if you're a diabetic, the almond flour might be a little bit better in helping to even that out, where you wouldn't get that spike. So,
absolutely. Yeah. So which, like before throwing out gluten flours altogether, you might try, having whole wheat flour, just as like a better version, of maybe you're buying white all-purpose flour for baking. Like, why not try whole wheat flour? It's got the bran and the germ, like you were saying, so it's got better blood stabilization, factors in there. And, what type of flour do you want to buy? If you're buying glutinous flour, you want to buy non-GMO and organic, because that means that they haven't been sprayed with toxic pesticides and herbicides, which you may be reacting to and having inflammation from more than the actual gluten protein itself.
Yeah, I think our whole food industry is taking a nosedive with all of the pesticides. And so some good friends of mine who were in Italy recently had been eating bread, and then they decided that it's the flour in Italy, the way they process it, or in Europe maybe, but particularly in Italy, that it didn't cause those gut problems. So, and I think when I was over at New Seasons, I found some Italian flour. So that might be another option as well with whole wheat, or if you really want to continue to eat glutinous foods, which there's nothing wrong with it.
We shouldn't build. Yeah, it's again like
they're not evil.
Yeah,
but everything in moderation. But if you truly are wanting to perhaps, see if you are allergic, the gluten-free, eat gluten-free or cut out all gluten for 30 days, or the Candida diet, which is another one that naturopaths like to use, takes away all of the food allergens. Dairy and, the nightshades and things like that. And that might be really telling. But there is gluten in other things aside from flour and carbohydrates.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so if you're really going to do that elimination diet, for 30 days for gluten alone, like you have to look for it in soy sauce, and, processed food like Morningstar non-chicken patties, things like that. We didn't really... When you asked me what gluten was, I didn't say it said it's a protein, but it's also like this binder and it creates elasticity. So if you think of like dough that you're stretching, so it's used in all sorts of food products to give that texture.
Yeah. Well, and we're coming up on Thanksgiving. We have gravy with our turkey and stuffing. And so that packaged gravy could have some gluten bread products in it because it contains flour, hot chocolate, cosmetics, medications, soy sauce, all of that might contain. So you want to be really mindful. So, but as we're navigating the world and the world of gluten, do we want to give up a whole food group? Not necessarily, but there are alternatives, right? That we have introduced with the different flours, the different, so quinoa flour, buckwheat flour, the coconut and almond flour, cashew flour, nut flours.
Couple flours to show you: coconut, almond. I mean, the shelves are stacked with these various flours. If you go to a natural grocery store, right? So
Yeah.
You won't have a hard time picking something out, choose a recipe, see how it goes, you know?
Yeah. So today we just learned that there are alternatives. Is gluten really the enemy? Maybe not. But if it is, there's a way to really kind of check that out. And so leave Elyssia and I a note and message us and let us know what you're experimenting with. Maybe use a almond flour or a coconut flour when you're making your cookies. Or you do one of each. You do a banana bread with regular flour and then one gluten-free. See what the difference is in taste and texture. That's a great way to experiment and see if it makes you feel better as well.
Yeah, let us know what you experiment with and any recipes that you really love that we can try.
That's right. You guys, thank you for joining us. Elyssia, thank you again for being here and sharing your knowledge. You can contact her at ElyssiaMaya.com. I'm Casey, at home with Casey. This is all about gluten and the holidays. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again next time when Elyssia joins us for, I don't know, what are we going to talk about?
Oh, yeah.
All right. You guys stay tuned. Take care. Stay well.